Alright, much brew about nothing. Playing some Esper Gifts Brains, and we got gifts, but our mana's horrible. I think we gotta ship this one. Okay. Well, I guess this is sort of better. I don't think we need a second Beck call at the moment. This hand's not great. We don't have any of our payoff cards, but maybe double Thought-Seize plus removal spell will be enough to keep us alive while we're waiting to draw cards that do stuff. Caves of Koilos. Probably Eldrazi and Taxes. Flooded Strand's actually not a bad draw. I think we're going to Overgrown Tomb, untapped, and just Thought-Seize. Double Path and Thalia? Ghost Quarter Tech Edge. Alright, we'll just take Thalia. Not really scared of Path in this deck. The Path is very bad against us, actually. Thalia is not horrible against us. Opponent passes. Unburial Rites is a ways away from being good. I'm a little worried about our opponent filing in something with the Ghost Quarter. Let's Flooded Strand, crack Flooded Strand while we know the coast is clear. Get an island and pass the turn. This way we can pay for a Leonin Arbiter if our opponent just happens to draw one to combo with the Ghost Quarter. Can also just kill something with Agony Warp. Tech Edge for our opponent. Promo Tech Edge. Opponent's going to Vial in Tidehollow Sculler. Okay. Opponent gets to take our Agony Warp, I assume. Otherwise it just kills the Sculler. Yep, takes Agony Warp. Shambling Vent, tapped, pass the turn. Well, Unburial Rites in hand is not great. Vial takes up to 3. Opponent gets in with Tidehollow Sculler. Down to 13, and passes. Well, Watery Grave, tapped, pass the turn. Tech Edge or Shambling Vent, alright. Let's get rid of this Sculler. Does give our opponent a land. Not exciting. We go down a land, also not exciting, but we get back our Agony Warp. If our opponent plays something big, we could be in trouble. Like a Thought-Knot or Reality Smasher. Another Caves. And opponent, we know they have 2... Oh, they're going to Vial something in? Flicker Wisp. We know they have 2 paths in hand. Targeting our land. Well, let's kill Flicker Wisp. So this puts us down a land for the turn. We know our opponent's got nothing in hand, though. But we don't really have anything in hand either. Opponent Ghost Quarters. We'll get a Plains. That actually works out fine for us. Polluted Delta. We get back our land from Flicker Wisp. I'm not going to pay life. Actually, let's crack Polluted Delta here before our opponent could get an Aven Mind Sensor or something. I think we need another white source. Probably just a Hollowed Fountain, I think. Yeah, let's Hollowed Fountain. Tapped. Pass the turn. Still, our opponent's getting to draw a card every turn. And if they ever hit a Thought-Knot Seer or something large, our life total's not that high. Alright, another Aether Vial. Basically a whiff. Alright, Path is good. Path deals with our opponent's next big threat. Gifts Ungiven would be a great draw. Brain would actually be a very good draw. We could Beck Call in 2 turns. Opponent... So I think those are the cards we're looking for. Passes. Inquisition, well, it's not getting any better. We might as well fire it off. I don't expect it to do much. Jeez, I guess we take Path. Our opponent could path their own stuff to get more lands. Third Vial just is not scary. Vials on 2 and 3. Opponent casts the third Vial. Vials all around. You know, Polluted Delta. Pass the turn. I guess we're now 1 land away from just casting the call part of Beck Call, which isn't horrible. Opponent Vials in a Wasteland Strangler. Alright, I think we take the hit from that for now, and hope that we can deal with it with our tokens eventually. I'd rather save Path for something scarier. Opponent's never going to have to tap a land again. They can just file in essentially any creature their deck can draw. Let's crack Polluted Delta. Get a Godless Shrine. Tapped. We drop to 8. Opponent passes. We get an Anguish Unmaking. That might be enough to make us Path Wasteland Strangler, since it's another removal spell for something big. And we can't just keep losing life. Alright, let's do it. Path Wasteland Strangler. Opponent passes. Well, let's Peer Through Depths. Oh, seriously? Oh, okay. 3 lands and a Brain in the Jar, along with the Inquisition. Oh, I was hoping for at least like an Esper Charm. Even drawing those lands in the Brain in the Jar would have been fine. That was like the worst Peer Through Depths of all time. Oh dear. Our life total's low, we're not really doing much. Well, Shambling Vents is a land. Means we can potentially Beck Call next turn. Our opponent still isn't drawing anything. Or not Beck Call, but Call. We can't use the Beck half yet. Opponent passes. We draw another land? Well, let's lead on Inquisition. Path, and lands. Alright. Drown Catacombs. Let's Thought-Seize the Path. And this lets us start attacking with Shambling Vent to get that life back. I think, now that we're to 7 lands, I think we're going to try to wait one more turn before we Beck. Because, well, one more land, preferably. Because if we can get one more land, then we get to fuse it and draw 4. And drawing 4 and getting 4 1/1s is very good. If our opponent gets something crazy, then that changes. Otherwise, I think that's the plan. Opponent Vials in a Thought-Knot. Alright, Vials in Thought-Knot. Which I think means we need to Anguish Unmaking the Thought-Knot. We draw a card. Lingering Souls. The problem here is we could die to Reality Smasher, so I think we actually just have to let this go. We're at exactly 5. We know our opponent's got nothing in hand. We could Gifts and set up Beck Call next turn, or we just... Alright, let's let this go. Our opponent probably takes Gifts. This way we get to attack with Shambling Vent, which means we're not just dead to... Ooh, takes Lingering Souls. I don't want to leave ourselves in a position where we die to Reality Smasher off the top. Aether Vial on 5, very suggestive of a Reality Smasher being in the deck. So going up to 7 seems like the best play. Then we can always Gifts next turn. And we're still a land away from fusing Beck Call. Vault of the Archangel. Opponent passes. We draw a Languish. So now let's just pass the turn. Leave up Gifts. Opponent passes. So let's Gifts Ungiven, targeting our opponent. And do we just want to go mono lands Gifts to make sure we Beck Call? That might be the play, in all honesty. Like, Plains, Swamp, Polluted Delta. Plains, Swamp, Polluted Delta, Lingering Souls. Swamp, Plains, Polluted Delta can get the Swamp for only 1 life, leaving us at 6. Polluted Delta and Lingering Souls. I think that's better than just getting back an Elesh Norn on an empty board. So opponent gives us the 2 basics. We draw another land. So let's play the Plains and just fuse a Beck Call. So get 4 1/1s, draw 4 cards. What do we draw? Path, reasonable. Lingering Souls, not bad. Supreme Verdict, could be helpful. And another Gifts. That was pretty good, actually. So let's pass the turn. And I think we just discard Unburial Rites. We don't mind having that in the graveyard. And now if we gifts for Elesh Norn, at least we're pumping up creatures, which makes it a little better. Leonin Arbiter for our opponent. Godless Shrine. Gotta be aware of Arbiter if we gifts. Ooh, there's Brain in the jar too. Well, let's 1, 2, 3 cast Lingering Souls. Get in with our birds. Play a swamp. And pass the turn. And this basically sets us up. If our opponent doesn't do anything good, we pay for Arbiter, gifts for Elesh Norn, reanimate Elesh Norn, and if our opponent can't immediately kill it, we just win with our flyers being pumped up by Elesh Norn. Opponent goes to combat. I think we actually just chump with 1 token. Want to stay away from that magical number 5. Okay. Opponent gives it lifelink. Goes up to 14. So let's pay for Arbiter. And then gifts ungiven. Just going to search for a single card, I think. Actually, we can get Lingering Souls plus Elesh Norn. Opponent vials in. Thought-Knot. Well, good thing we discarded our Burial Rites. Not actually going to disrupt our plan. Might just be that our opponent wants to look at our hand and they know they're dying. They could have 1 Path to Exile left. They could also have, yeah, something. So get our last Lingering Souls and get Elesh Norn. Both go in the graveyard. Untap, Unburial Rites, Elesh Norn. And then do some attacking with our flyers. Does our opponent have a way to kill Elesh Norn? If not, that should do it. Sweet. Alright. Well, that went pretty well. Eldrazi and taxes, eh? Against this deck, what do we even want? Iona doesn't do much. Finks is so-so. Liliana, Agony Warp. I guess we want the last path. Trickbind doesn't seem great. Explosives hits, I guess, Ether Vial. Technically, it gets... Our deck has so many colors, it can get big enough to hit, like, our opponent's 3-drops. I guess we can bring that in. Over a Thoughts? Does Disfigure kill anything? Yeah, Arbiter, Flicker Wisp. I guess it does. We probably want our discard to get our opponent's 2-drops, which would be pretty annoying for us. Far Away could be good. Maybe we just go down the Peer Through Depths, which is pretty bad. Yeah, let's try that. Let's try it like this. Seems reasonable. Alright, this hand is pretty good. Thoughtseize for turn 1, Abrupt Decay for turn 2, Anguish Unmaking for turn 3. And Abrupt Decay can get a Ether Vial, if need be. Tap land for our opponent. Let's just Polluted Delta, crack Polluted Delta, get an Overgrown Tomb, I think. And Thoughtseize. Cost us a quarter of our life to do that. Take Tidehollow Sculler. Flicker Wisp, and a Wrath. Wrath isn't even very good against us. I mean, I guess it gets rid of Lingering Souls tokens. Relic of Progenitus for our opponent. I'm going to start exiling our graveyard at some point. Let's just Prairie Stream past the turn. I don't think we're going to need to Abrupt Decay anything this turn. The next turn we'll have access to basically all our removal spells. Alright, Relic gets rid of our land. Opponent passes. Gets rid of our Thoughtseize. Let's Watery Grave tapped. Ghost Quarter for our opponent. And passes. Flooded Strand, goo. Feel like we're winning just because we have so many more cards in our hand, and we can stop pretty much anything scary our opponent could try to do. Going to Tech Edge our green source. Well, let's float green. And then crack Flooded Strand. Get a Temple Garden. Tapped. There's a Flicker Wisp. Going after Ghost Quarter. So let's get rid of this Relic, I think. Why our opponent can't sack it. Draw a card. Because we have tons of ways of killing this Flicker Wisp. The only downside here is we might actually just run out of green mana. So it might have been wrong to fetch out that Temple Garden. Might have been better to save it for when we could actually use it. So, Island, you. Opponent. Alright, let's get rid of the Flicker Wisp with our Agony Warp. Keep from taking any extra damage for no good reason. Opponent passes. We get, there's a Lingering Souls. Flooded Strand, crack Flooded Strand. Let's get a Plains. And Lingering Souls. Flashback Lingering Souls. Pass the turn. This might just make our opponent Wrath, actually. And trading a Wrath for a Lingering Souls actually works out in our favor, I think. At least it's not a bad trade. 1 for 1, essentially. Even though we lose 4 tokens. Tidehollow Sculler for our opponent. We have a million removal spells. Unfortunately, only 1 black source. Alright, takes Far Away. Wow. Ghost Quarters their own plains. Gets a swamp. Will they have a Thought-Seize or something? Wait, wow. I don't know if that's worth Ghost Quartering yourself to kill a single spirit token. Seems a bit ambitious to me. At least we don't have to worry about that Ghost Quarter anymore, because our mana was sketchy. We have 1 green source and 1 black source. And we know they have a Wrath in hand. All around that was odd. Let's play a Swamp. Pass the turn. I think we're going to try to wait until we can fuse this spec call, hopefully. Another Temple. Now, our opponent's got lots of mana if they want to cast Eldrazi. Gets in with both. Well, let's just triple block Tidehollow Sculler. Unfortunately, our Far Away was processed, so we don't get that back. We draw a Supreme Verdict. Alright, pass the turn. Alright, let's just do it. Let's cast our call. I like drawing cards off of it, but in this scenario, making 4 1/1s is probably better. This might get the Wrath out of our opponent's hand. Another Tidehollow Sculler. Well, we have double removal spells. They probably take Anguish Unmaking, I would assume. Having a Sculler also makes it less worth it for our opponent to Wrath, because they're going to lose their Sculler and give us back our Wrath. No attacks. We get a Noxious Revival. Let's get in with a token. Still going to play defense here. We're pretty far behind on life total, and our removal is expensive as far as life is concerned. Caves for our opponent. Flicker Wisp. Well, our opponent's down to just that Wrath of God in hand. Gonna flicker our token. Alright, let's double block Wasteland Strangler. If we draw lands, we can just get back our Beck Call with Noxious Revival. I don't want to do it until we can draw, though, because we know about that Wrath. Alright, there's Drowned Catacombs. Pass the turn. Fires up Shambling Vent. Well, let's just chump for now. Now there's the Plains. Alright, play the Plains, pass the turn. So our plan now is chump 1 more turn. Oh, seriously? That Ghost Quarter might ruin everything. Here comes Shambling Vent. Opponent swings with both. Let's block and an Anguish Unmaking, the Tidehollow Sculler. Drop to 7. Get back our Wrath. I don't think we can Noxious Revival, though. Inquisition. Well, let's Inquisition. See what's in our opponent's hand. Thalia and Wrath. Take Thalia. Supreme Verdict. Kill Flicker Wisp. Pass the turn. The problem is that if we try to Noxious Revival back our Beck Call, our opponent can just Ghost Quarter our green source, and then we can't do it anyway. Here comes Shambling Vent. Oh, they tap Ghost Quarter. Whoo! Okay. Now we get to do it. That's what we were waiting for. So we drop to 5. Sure. Opponent Thought-Knots. In response, we Noxious Revival our Beck Call. Not paying life. Ooh, well, that was actually fortunate. If our opponent hadn't drawn that Thought-Knot Seer, they would have left up Ghost Quarter, and this whole plan wouldn't have worked. But now it doesn't really matter, because we're going to draw 4. Which means, even if they Ghost Quarter after this, it's not the end of the world. So let's fuse a Beck Call. Get 4 1/1s, draw 4 cards. And what do we draw? Polluted Delta. Another Beck Call. Another Beck Call. Well, let's play a Polluted Delta. Pass the turn. I think we're out of green mana, though, which is pretty scary. If we could just keep Beck Calling, we'd probably win, but I think they're going to Ghost Quarter our Temple Garden. Here comes Shambling Vents. Alright, let's throw everything in front of Shambling Vents. This ended up being a pretty long, crazy game. I feel like we're winning, though. Opponent passes. Alright, well, that makes things easy. Swamp. Fuse a Beck Call. Thankfully, they aren't going on the Ghost Quarter our green source plan. I guess they don't know that we don't have another green source. Draw 4 more cards. Get 4 more birds. Beck Call is pretty sweet in the late game. Lingering Souls, land, Thoughtsize, and Brain in a Jar. Let's Thoughtsize, get rid of the Wrath, and pass the turn. Now the only problem is, like, Engineered Explosives would get us good if they drew it right here. Opponent passes, plays a land. Well, we're already at 3, might as well go to 2. Get a Godless Shrine. On Burial Rites with no targets yet. Well, let's fuse a Beck Call. Third turn in a row. So good, so much value. There's a path, which is awesome. The gifts, which is also good. Inquisition, and Shambling Vent. Well, play Shambling Vent, cast Inquisition. Opponent's going to path one of our birds out of basics. That's fine. So let's pass the turn, and I think this means we just win next turn by reanimating our Elesh Norn, unless our opponent top decks here. Opponent passes. Alright, that makes it easy. I think we even have enough mana. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh, we can't also make our opponent discard. Well, let's just do it. Gifts Ungiven. This should do it, unless our opponent top decked. Get the Elesh Norn. Get a Lingering Souls. Put both in the graveyard. On Burial Rites, our Elesh Norn. Pump up all of our birds to 3/3s. Swing with the crew. Oh, God. Our opponent did draw a path. Alright. Interesting. Well, that was a good top deck. I think we're still okay. We just got to go on the slow bird beatdown plan. Oh, if we had 1 more mana, we would have been able to also Esper Charm first, but since we were at 2, we couldn't play an untapped land. Opponent has a Displacer. Alright, that means we got to path this Thought-Knot. And our opponent scoops it up.